It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
We now welcome in Travis Yost, NHL writer for TSN. Travis, thanks for joining us once again.
How you guys doing today?
Good. Are you still listening to Freebird?
You know what's funny? I race from time to time.
Okay.
I'm a distance runner, and in the races where music is allowed, Freebird's always been on the short list of like, let me plow through the last 2.5 miles here. And now I think it's going to be number one on my Spotify for the next 5 years. So yeah, we're good to go.
Of course it is. What a special moment. I mean, just everything about it has been awesome. Just your reaction initially when you saw that goal go in. Hughes scores, and the United States, for the first time in 46 years, wins a gold medal. I mean, whatever country people might have been pulling for, just as a fan of hockey, you had to appreciate that moment. Well, what went through your mind in that moment, and how did you take it in?
Man, there's a lot to kind of unpack with this. Let's start with the golden goal by Jack Hughes. It felt in many respects a long time coming, especially if whether you're a casual or hardcore hockey fan. I think a lot of people, even people who may be new to hockey in the Utah area, they probably vaguely remember. If not, if they're hardcore fans, they definitely remember the 2010 game. That was so competitive. Again, the United States had an elite goaltender at the time, and then it was Ryan Miller of the Buffalo Sabres. Sidney Crosby scores the game-winning goal in a game that Canada was the better team, but the U.S. had the better goalie, and the U.S. fell short. And, fast forward to last week, and it really did play out that way. I thought the U.S. for the first 25 minutes was on the level with Canada. And I think that's a statement in and of itself. And then I think everyone got started gripping their couches and anything else they could hold on as you watch especially the second period into the third. Canada completely took over that game. And if it was not for Connor Hellebuck, who I made this argument, a tangential note here, I made this argument right after the game. I think he's now the number one all-time American goaltender, 3 Vezina trophies and now a gold medal. Stanley Cup sure would be nice for Hellebuck, but he's kind of penciled his way there. He's already a Hall of Famer. And the Hughes goal, too, I think was sweet for several reasons. Number one, winning the gold medal. I mean, you feel the patriotism bleed out. It was such a competitive game, so great to see. And I think the cool thing, and hockey doesn't always work like this. It frequently works in a very frustrating manner. The 2 players that were head and shoulders the reason that the U.S. won, Jack Hughes and Connor Hellebuck, I would argue were their 2 best players the entire tournament. You could probably throw Jack Eichel in there for the top to round out the top 3. But they were the 2 best players, and there was something sweet about the 2 best players for the American side all tournament getting the job done against, in my opinion, the best team in Canada. But you know what? USA was game, and they deserved every bit of that gold medal.
Yeah, man. It just felt great, right? Like coming into this, was it just me, or was there a lot of attention being put on ice hockey before this Olympics starts? So, how did this Olympics compare to other ones coming in? I just thought that the narratives, Winter Olympic-wise, I had a buddy competing in snowboarding, so of course I was paying attention to that. But other than that, I was paying attention to hockey as far as this really felt like America's year to do this, even before the hockey inter-bracket play started. It felt like USA had a great team, and this was going to be the moment that we come away with gold. Was that the case, or was that just me feeling that, heading into this?
Again, casual or hardcore fan alike, Winter Olympic fan, maybe just checking in for hockey, whatever the case is. I think there were several reasons for why what you're saying was universally true. Number one, the players, and it should be underlined 10 times over, the players fought violently for Olympic participation. It does not set up like the Summer Olympics in the NBA schedule where it's the off season and typically it's just an exercise in scheduling for NBA players to go over and compete. The Winter Olympics is right in the middle of the NHL schedule, and the NHL, I'm not going to defend them here, but I will make one singular point. they don't get a dime from this. They certainly reap the benefits of the tangential exposure of Olympic competition, but it's been a long time coming to get players back into Olympic competition, and they had to freeze out the league for almost 3 weeks. So the NHL as a league takes a bit of a hit, but number one, I think it's going to be a massive tailwind for growing the sport in the States, just like it was in 1980. It shouldn't be lost on anyone. Several players across the American lineup, Phoenix, Arizona, Orlando, Florida, these are as far away from hockey cities as you could possibly imagine. And the other thing, too, is even though they had been frozen out of the Olympics for so long, we got a little bit of a taste of it in the Four Nations face-off last year, which was absolutely insane. And I think that kind of dovetails into my last point. One of the advantages hockey has as a sport over the last, let's say, 2 decades is you really, in another universe, if Russia's there and the Czechs and the Slovaks maybe have a joint team, but even those two teams, those two countries in and of themselves, you really can field a very competitive tournament, predominantly of NHL talent across 6 different countries. And that's why, we could sit here for hours talking about how great just the American games were, hours about just the Canadian games. I watched the entire, 4 consecutive quarterfinal games. I'm watching Germany play. I'm watching the Czechia play. I'm watching Slovakia, who is really the story of the tournament, in my opinion, even though they didn't medal. And it's there's a lot of goodness and tailwinds in international and global growth of this sport. And it just dovetailed nicely with the USA-Canada, the hatred of the rivalry, the peak of the competition. I think I'll end on this note, too. I think Eddie Olczyk said it 4, 5, 6 times during the game. He kept saying, and now he's got the bird's eye view, right? He kept saying, this is the fastest game I've ever seen. I'm telling you, as someone who has watched really a sickening and an almost embarrassing amount of hockey over the last 20 years, that was the fastest game I have ever seen. And you watch, it was noticeable how many truly elite players on both sides, Canada and the United States, were making mistakes during the game because the talent on the ice was so incredible.
It really was. And between Four Nations and this, you're absolutely right. Hockey's having a moment here. And before we get to the Mammoth, one last Olympic question is, what does this now do for USA hockey to beat Canada, to win a gold medal for the first time in 46 years? What does this do for the future of USA hockey?
It's massive. And by the way, I would be remiss to not emphasize that, we're talking about double gold medals here, right? The USA women knocking out the Canadian women's team was just I get it's not going to get the same, headline, especially because the U.S. men's team was an underdog where the women's team was a pretty consensus favorite. But double gold medals, the sport is drawing massive attention. And by the way, the NHL as a business kind of is wrapped up in all of this. And, why are we sitting here? Why have I been on KSL 6, 7, 8 times this year? 1, you guys are very nice. But 2, the league moved to Salt Lake City. They expanded in Seattle. They expanded in Vegas. This league is going to 34 teams, whether people want it or not. There will be a hockey team in Houston. You can write that down right now. Houston is getting an NHL team. There is a question about what the 34th team is going to be. But why do I bring that up? If the NHL was such a rinky-dink, and by the way, I have endless criticisms about the NHL for different reasons, but if it was such a rinky-dink, unprofitable, and if a second-tier or third-tier sport that no one was interested in, they wouldn't be able to grow to amongst the Big Four, the biggest league that there is with 34 teams. So I think you're going to continue to see a lot of grassroots effort. One thing, Gary Bettman has walked over endless amounts of landmines as a commissioner. The one thing that he got right, and he didn't get it right at a micro level because some markets were disasters, but expanding through the Sun Belt and bringing hockey to the southern part of the United States, and now in the southwestern part of the United States with Vegas and Utah coming online, has been a massive win for the league. People want to make fun about the Thrashers and the Coyotes. I do as well, by the way, but the Predators are ultra successful. The 2 Florida teams are ultra successful. Vegas has been it's an ATM machine for the league, and now Salt Lake has been a massive upgrade over Phoenix. So.
Yeah, not to mention the 2 Stanley Cup winners in Florida and the Carolina Hurricanes might win it this year. You're absolutely right. It has changed hockey. and this league forever. And now we can look forward to an the finish of this NHL season. Everybody gets back to work tomorrow. Well, not everybody. There's some guys that are a little hungover that might not get to work. About to say. We'll see who shows up when. But for the most part, the league is back tomorrow night. The Mammoth will be hosting the Avs. It's going to be fun. What are the storylines you're focused on now that the league gets back to work here on Wednesday? What are you looking forward to the most?
I'll give you the league version. I'll give you the Utah version. The league version, we've got some seriously exciting business around the corner with the NHL trade deadline. For those, Utah was kind of a tweener team last year, a little bit active, but this trade deadline does set up fairly well with some expected salary cap growth over the next couple of years for contenders to be buying, which is exactly what you want to see. In the last few years, especially coming out of the pandemic, the NHL is a hard cap league. It was hard to make money work on certain trades. Over the last couple of years, as growth has returned to the league, you've started to see more moves in and around the trade deadline. A team that I am watching feverishly, I wrote about it on Monday, are the Nashville Predators. They have not one, not two, but three premium veteran forwards in Steven Stamkos, Ryan O'Reilly, and Jonathan Marchessault, one or all of which could be traded within the next week. And these are our top 6 impact players. That's just one team, right? The St. Louis Blues are going to be sellers. The Vancouver Canucks expect to be sellers. So there is an opportunity for teams like, segue, the Utah Mammoth, who have plenty of cap space. And if they're interested in looking for upgrades around the league, those opportunities are going to be available to them. And that does bring me to the Utah point. It's time. I know it seems like, hey, it's only year 2. It's time. This is a playoff caliber team. This is clearly one of the best 8 teams in the Western Conference. They need to find a way to cross the finish line and get into the playoffs. They have to start answering, and I think they've done a good job since the Christmas break of answering these questions a little more aggressively. But beating teams like Colorado coming into town, Dallas, Minnesota, I mean, you're no longer going to be compared to the St. Louis and Nashville's in the division. The teams that you're looking up at are not only the teams that you got to steal points from to catch them, number one, but number two, you have got to be able to stay afloat in this wild card race. The thing that the Mammoth should be considering, and it's not that I think the Avalanche are some unbeatable juggernaut, but if the Mammoth can secure the first of the 2 wild card teams, let's assume they don't crack the top 3 of the Central and it holds. If they can secure one of the top 2 wild card teams, that means they would cross and play Vegas, who is a very, very good hockey team, but clearly has not played to the same level of the Avalanche. Whereas if they finish as a second wild card team, again, I think that's a massively successful season for the Mammoth getting into the playoffs in year 2. But you are talking about a very uphill battle in a road 7-game series against the Avalanche. It goes without saying. If there's one thing I think Mammoth fans know, it's how good this Avalanche team is.
No, yeah. For the last few years, the Avalanche have just been rolling through everybody. I guess it's because the trade deadline get pushed because of the Olympics. It would be too early to ask for a dark horse, right? There's still some movement to go around. I know you just alluded to wild card spots, but like say the playoff picture is settled. It is what it is as the picture sets it right now. Who would be that dark horse team? I see that there's a ton of, even in the Eastern Conference, there's a ton of middle of the pack teams that are really good, from the Sabres, the Bruins, and the Islanders who can make a late season surge here. Who would be that dark horse team even after this trade deadline next week to look out for?
So, and I really mean this. I think the Eastern Conference is a little more interesting because in the West, I think there's one team, and I think it is the Mammoth. Well, I talked about this a few weeks ago, but, the Mammoth, it's not I think it's worth emphasizing. Like, the 2 teams in the wild card position as we come out of the Olympic break right now in the West are Utah and Anaheim. Mm-hmm. I think they're separated by a point or 2 in the standings. I think Utah's 1 point up on the Ducks.
Correct.
They are 36 goals apart in goal differential. They are not remotely the same caliber team. The Ducks are a mediocre team at best. The Mammoth have a goal differential that not only indicates contender, but a team that can actually win a playoff series. And by the way, a lot of it is because they are getting great goaltending once again from Vejmelka net, and at even strength, their top 9 is as competitive as most teams you'll find in the league. In the East, I think the story there's 2 teams that I hone in on, but one you mentioned is the Buffalo Sabres, where if there's been one team hotter than the Mammoth over the last 6 to 8 weeks, it probably is the Sabres. And for the last few years, the Sabres have been almost a carbon copy of the Mammoth in many respects except one, which is they look great when you watch them 5-on-5. They look great in spurts, but the goaltending in Buffalo has been utterly dreadful. Not the case this year. Alex Lyon's given them some real stability in net. And the Sabres, where they're sitting right now, another wild card one team, but I think they're 20 goals to the upside in goal differential, which pretty much puts them somewhere between like the Hurricanes and the Penguins, who look like very likely playoff teams at this point. They're the two hottest teams in the league, so it's a little bit of a convenient argument for me to make. But at the end of the day, the one thing the NHL standings can do is lie to you, unlike the NBA standings. The NBA, it's just the reality of it.
It's true.
There's so much more parity, and that's a two-sided coin. It's good and bad. Like the NBA, 15, 20 games into the season, you can look at the standings and know who's making it. The NHL, the race is much longer. Some of it is mechanical because of the third point given out in overtime. It creates a false parity in some respects,
right.
But it's also a very volatile sport, single game outcomes. Goal differential is a much better indicator than win-loss record or shootout records or overtime records. And the Sabres and the Mammoth look much more like top 10 teams than they do fringe wildcard contenders. And those would be the two teams I'd pin as sleepers here.
To your point, the Mammoth are 5th in the NHL in goal differential. And
think about that.
Three of the top 5 are in their division.
and by the way, like there's a little bit of an argument of like, oh yeah, it's easy to beat up on Chicago, and it's like, yep, but for every game they have to play Chicago, they've got to play Colorado, and that stuff washes out over an 82-game season.
It certainly does. One last question for you before we cut you loose. You mentioned the trade deadline and the Mammoth and needing to make that push. You don't even have to give me a name. Just like, what do the Mammoth need that you think would put them over the top and get them that number one wild card spot, or even just hold on to any spot in the playoffs? What move do they have to make?
I'll make a shameless plug right now. I wrote about him as the most interesting trade candidate off the I could have made an argument that he was the most interesting trade candidate even when Artemi Panarin was still a Ranger. Obviously, Panarin was the big fish rumored at the trade deadline, him and Stamkos, if the Predators are even considering that. Problem with Stamkos is even for a team like Utah, you're talking about an $8 million cap hit that's a little hard to squeeze in. Jordan Kyrou, a extremely, extremely fast middle six winger playing for the St. Louis Blues. The Blues season is effectively over. That team will be in fire sale mode. Jordan Kyrou is a pretty reliable 30-goal scorer. Think J.J. Peterka with maybe not the high-end shot, but wheels like a few guys, even a speedy team like the Mammoth couldn't replicate. I think the Mammoth have a real opportunity here with the young core has emerged. They're in their prime playing years. Most of their core is between the ages of 23 and 28. They're a little older on the back end, but I think the blue line's held up very well. You can't really upgrade goaltending, and quite frankly, Vizmelk has been awesome for Utah.
Right.
I am making a very, very aggressive call to the St. Louis Blues and finding out what it would take to free up Jordan Kyrou out of St. Louis, because that is a very interesting contract. It's a very logical rebound candidate, and I think he would, from a team chemistry standpoint, which matters a lot in the NHL, I think he would fit in with the Logan Cooley's, the Clayton Kellers, the Dylan Gunther's as seamlessly as any forward you can find around the league. So pin that name if you got it.
Utah hockey fans, you've got to read Travis Yost at TSN. You just heard a lot of what he writes about on this show. Always great to have you, Travis. Great breakdown. Entertaining and informative. We love it every time you come on, Travis. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I'll end with one note. I asked all of my Canadian editors if I could file a 7,500-word piece about American excellence this week, and I just got a.
There you go. I approve.
I just got a no thanks.
America, heck yeah!
Hey, 700 of those 750 words are all going to be America. So,
amen. Take care, guys.
Yeah, you should have just played Freebird into the phone while you were making your pitch. Thanks, Travis.